Hello and welcome to the Hugh Hat-Trick Show on our F1 News Roundup. It's great to see you and thank you very much to everyone who's been listening and watching on YouTube and on Podbean. We've had a record month. We've had over 560 plays on Podbean for all of our podcasts, which is a record. So thank you very much and please continue to share the programs out with your friends because it'd be great to see the channel grow. So this week there has been some major announcements because the FIA got together with the teams and all the kind of, as they would say, stakeholders. We want the F1 jargon, and they have come up with some new regulations to try and make the racing a lot better because we've got these new batteries, and of course, people are thinking it's a slight yo-yo overtaking. So let's have a look at what these new changes are, and will it make any difference to the Formula One Grand Prix in Miami at the beginning of May? Let's find out. So, for qualifying, the recharge limit has been set at a maximum of 7 mg, I think that's millijoules per lap, with provision to reduce this further depending on the circuit. So, cutting into the maximum recharge limit should reduce the amount of super clipping into corners. And while it doesn't account for the regular derate as drivers run out of energy on the straights, the eyesore of lift and coast or otherwise slow progress on the approach to corners should be less conspicuous. It's unavoidable that the batteries will have to be charged to the lap, given that they can store up to 4 millijoules. So this is a compromise solution. Now, I've taken this from Autosport as it came to press regarding the Miami Grand Prix. And they go on to say when the cars do enter the super clipping phase, it should be a less drawn out process. The maximum energy recovery has been set at 350 kilowatts, up from the previous 250 kilowatt limit. And this will slow the cars down more as the cars charge off the internal combustion engine. So in theory, the 100 kilowatt increase will shrink the super clipping distance. An optimistic view of this would be that this blends more seamlessly with a conventional braking zone to minimize the visual impact further. Because there's nothing worse than watching this on the TV, and of course you hear the engine at high revs, and then it suddenly lowers, and the car has slowed down. Not exactly as exciting as Formula One really should be. Now, this also extends into the races. As part of F1's drive to reduce the more conspicuous differences in closing speeds, and furthermore, the boost button, essentially the 350 kilowatt power on demand function, cannot be used until the MGU-K is deploying more than 150 kilowatts to limit any sudden bursts of acceleration. And this perhaps is the most impactful change, however, is that the maximum deployment will now be variable. In straight mode zones, the activation of the Activero package will ensure that cars can reach their 350 kilowatt platform in cornering mode. The cars will now be capped at 250 kilowatts. This should ensure two things. The first, that the drivers are more likely to be equal in deployable energy through downforce critical zones on track, and two, that deployment can be spread a bit more evenly throughout the lap. Now, while these areas are where the teams chose not to deploy, as demonstrated by the S's at Suzuka, the rules around this are somewhat complex. Elsewhere, there are rules governing power limited periods around the circuit, and the engineers build maps around this to pick their deployment levels. This is, to a degree, similar to the previous regulations, but magnified as the electrical systems command more airtime owing to their increased output. Now, Formula One did want to keep the notional 50-50 split in internal combustion engine power and electrical power, and the headline numbers are thus retained. Although, to be honest, it's not really 50-50, with more sporadic use of the full 350 kilowatts from the MGU-K. Then there's also changes in wet races. The blanket temperatures will be increased for intermediate tyres, with further plans to limit the energy deployment in wet races to reduce the chance of drivers losing control to the high levels of torque produced by the electrical systems. This is expected to be around 200 to 250 kilowatts, and without the chance to activate the boost or overtake modes on the wheel. Furthermore, the rear lights will be revised to improve visibility for chasing drivers. Now, Formula One will also test a new system in Miami, and this is to alleviate concerns about slow and stranded cars at the start of races. This includes what the FIA has termed as a low power start detection system, which kicks in when it determines a driver has got away slowly after the release of the clutch. With this, the MGU-K will be deployed as a safety measure to ensure that the driver can at least get up to a minimum level of acceleration, ensuring that drivers behind do not have to make any sudden maneuvers in response. The level of energy deployment will be low to ensure no performance advantage is gleaned from this, and the drivers behind will be kept informed of any low powered starters ahead with rear light signals. It's also been noted that this won't be implemented in the race. F1 will put the system through its paces in practice and then assess the data produced. But the big question is, are these changes actually enough? Are they going to make any difference? It seems like there is an inescapable element of, we'll just have to see how it goes when the changes are rolled out from Miami, as F1 is effectively responding to new scenarios on the fly. And that's understandable given that there's no provision to conduct test races, and teams likely wouldn't vote for that anyway. The opening rounds of 2026 were always going to stress test the new regulations. So it'd be interesting to know what your views are, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're on Podbean. Let me know what you think. I have to say, the more I've gotten into it, the less convinced I am. And I mean, I know the starts of the races I was quite impressed with. I quite like the kind of lots of overtaking and the Ferraris being good at the start. But we want to see the engines revving out hard and the drivers doing proper overtakes. And I just wonder whether this will be enough for that to take place. What might be interesting though is that they do seem to think that Ferrari might make some gains in catching up to Mercedes and also McLaren as well in the month coming up to Miami, because they are able to use maybe some of their engine development time or the process that they're allowed to actually um, have their step up levels throughout the year. So will Ferrari suddenly get more competitive? Could they take a couple of tenths or 2 or 3 tenths off? That would be something to get the Ferraris they need the race pace as well as McLaren, so they can take it to Mercedes, and then we can have a real fight for the championship. Let me know what you think about these F1 regulations and the changes. Are they going to have to do any more? Do you think these cars are going to be so slow that the F2s won't be that far away? Well, we'll have to find out. Now, before we get to our next headline, make sure you join us tomorrow night. It'll be at 8 o'clock live on our YouTube channel. We'll also put it on Podbean on Friday morning because we are going to have a Nigel Mansell Formula One special. That's right. I'll be there alongside Simon and Rue. Of course, Simon is a big Nigel Mansell fan, along with myself. And he's going to have all the historical facts, and we'll have the stories ready to bring to you about just how we love the man with the mustache, and that Io Leone, as the Ferrari fans used to call him. So that will be on live on our YouTube channel. I'll leave the link in the description, and it'll be 8 o'clock tomorrow night on YouTube. The Mansell special. Make sure you don't miss it. Now, my next F1 news is about the Formula One game coming out later this year. It normally comes out at the end of May, and it's been quite popular. To be fair, not so much on multiplayer. It kind of lasts for a little while, and then it kind of dies down. But usually, it's quite a good fun game to play. And if you wait till about August, September time, you can get it for about £25 on Steam. So it is actually quite good value. But the issue is with all these new regulations, how is F1, as in the game, going to manage to bring that to the F1 fans and those who play it? Because it's rather complicated. In the past, we had DRS zones that you could basically put on automatically as you played the game. And now, with all these kind of, in terms of like super climbing, trying to charge the battery, you're going to have a button to start charging the battery. You're going to have a button for this kind of overtake boost. I think it's going to be quite difficult. So I'll be quite interested to see how they actually bring that into the game, because I think it's going to make it very, very tricky. And I think it might actually lose some of its fun, because the nice thing about the current game is that you can basically drive flat out and just enjoy it. Yes, you've got DRS zones and things like that from last year, but it's quite easy to drive, and it's pretty much a kind of jump in and just have a go. I think this will take F1 either into a much more simulator style game where it'll take a lot more expertise to kind of drive it and get the most out of it. And I think it will certainly separate the really good drivers from the kind of the average kind of driver who just wants to play. So it's going to be interesting. And I'd like to know your thoughts. Do you think that the F1 game will be any good? Do you think it's going to be any better? Or do you think with all these new regulations, with the energy, they'll be able to somehow translate that into the game and make it work? Yeah, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts. Now, I'm planning on doing a couple more podcasts every week, especially for Podbean, but I also will put them on my video channels on YouTube, whether it be on the Hugh Hatrick channel or my new channel as well, Save Money Like a Scotsman, which will be doing more kind of car stuff, looking at car prices, looking at deals, and also doing some funny stories as well with my good friend James Ruppert in the future. Well, that will be coming in the next week or two. But my main thing is I would like to do a kind of gaming podcast where we'll do news on GT7, LMU, things like that, and other games that come up. And if you would like to join me with that, or fancy coming on the show and being a guest, then please let me know. It would be fantastic to have you alongside. My email is info@hughhatrick.com. I'll again put that in the description so that you can get it from there. But so there'll be two podcasts. One will be the GT7 and gaming podcast. Then we'll have our F1 show, which we always do for the roundup of the news. And also we do our Grand Prix reviews with Rue and Simon. And of course, Liam as well, who you'll know as Levitius. He'll be coming on after the Miami Grand Prix in early May. But let me know what you think. And keep on listening if you can. I do much appreciate everyone who's been watching and supporting the channel. It's great to have you alongside on the Hugh Hatrick Show. I'll leave you with our famous motto: drive fast, don't crash. And I'll be back very soon. Bye just now.